Gina Haspel, by the way, President Trump's pick to head the CIA, is facing potentially contentious Senate confirmation hearings. Democrats and some Republicans, led by Senator Rand Paul, may be opposing the nomination, citing her role in the enhanced interrogation techniques that were used during the Bush administration. Joining me now, Republican Congressman from Florida, Ron DeSantis. Congressman, thanks for coming in.
Good to see you.
Let's start with the Democrats. Can you believe that Democrats in an election year might actually try to, Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer, Dianne Feinstein, may try to block the first female CIA chief in an election year because she's, wait for it, too tough on terrorists?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I mean, she's had a really distinguished career. She's been in the CIA for over 30 years. She's been lauded by people who've served in the agency or even headed the agency or other intelligence services in both parties. And they're going back to kind of the post 9/11 controversy over the enhanced interrogation. But, you know, that's kind of been litigated. I mean, we did that. There were no charges brought against these people. There were legal opinions put down. I know people disagree with them, but she was acting in that direction. But since then, what has she done? She's been great in that position.
And the context is we were on a war footing post 9/11.
That's
right. There were
right.
fears of more attacks coming.
There was. And so she's been the deputy director for over a year. She's done a great job. She really does a lot of day-to-day management of the agency because Mike Pompeo, you know, he's with the president. He's got to do other things. So she's ready. No one disputes that she can step into this job on day one and do a good job.
Now,
so I think it was a good pick, and I think she should be confirmed.
I mentioned Democrats, but to be fair, Republicans, Rand Paul, but also John McCain are raising questions as well. And I want to read something from John McCain. He says, quote, "The torture of detainees in U.S. custody during the last decade was one of the darkest chapters in American history. Ms. Haspel needs to explain the nature and extent of her involvement in the CIA's interrogation program, I should say, during this confirmation process. I know the Senate will do its job in examining her record as well as her beliefs about torture and her approach to current law. I should note that today is actually 45 years ago today, John McCain was released from imprisonment by the North Vietnamese. He's somebody who knows something about torture, Congressman.
And I think all those questions are fine. Anything in her record is fair game to ask, but I think that people that are going to focus on one aspect and not look at her whole record, that's just not how I would approach this, and particularly because she served with such distinction just in the last 10 or 15 years since all this happened.
Let's broaden it out a little bit. We talked about maybe bigger changes, but let's start with Rex Tillerson. You're somebody very keen on national security issues, which is why I had you on. What do you think about the president firing his own Secretary of State on Twitter?
Well, look, that's obviously unorthodox. I mean, I do think, though, the press initially got it wrong that this was totally out of the blue. Rex was told something on Friday.
The chief of staff said, "Hey, look out for a tweet."
No, I know, and that's just the way, you know, the way it went down, and it not necessarily the way that everyone would do it. But at the end of the day, they didn't have a good rapport together. There was questions whether Tillerson spoke for the president or didn't. And if you don't have, if the allies and adversaries don't have confidence that Secretary of State speaks with the president, for the president, they're not going to be as effective. I think Mike Pompeo, he gets along well with the president. He briefs him every day as CIA director. Mike's got an extensive background. I mean, Rex had a phenomenal business background. Mike's a business guy. He's a West Point graduate, Harvard Law School, congressman, CIA director. So I think he goes into that position of Secretary of State with a real serious breadth of experience.
A lot of experience. 1 minute I have left. What would be your advice to the potential, you know, the Secretary of State designate and the president and the rest of the national security team about not just the meeting with North Korea, but they have a big decision on whether to pull out on the Iran nuclear deal? The stakes are high right now.
They are, but Mike Pompeo, he's really in tune with Donald Trump and Donald Trump's view of the Iran deal being a disaster. I was with Mike in the Congress fighting the Iran deal back in 2015. Mike was one of the leaders in that, and I don't think he's seen anything as CIA director to cause him to question his judgment. Quickly. Well, I think Mike knows North Korea, Kim Jong-un, these guys are adversaries. He's not going to want to go into that willy-nilly, but the president is pushing a lot of pressure on Kim Jong-un, and I think it has had a positive effect so far.
It might have brought him to the table.
I think so.
Congressman Ron DeSantis, appreciate you coming in.
Thanks.